Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, it takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we?
Tonight's first encounter. I never expected to have a conversation like this, but I didn't know where else to go. I've always believed there is more to the world than what we know, but late one Saturday night, March 14th, 2015, I had a terrifying encounter with something completely unexpected. I'm writing this to you because after researching for something comparable, the only close reference I could find was an encounter on November 20th, 2011. The Mud Creek Road creature. I really wish I had seen a Bigfoot or an alien. At least those are more well known. I told my parents and closest friend about this so far because I had to talk to somebody, but it sounds completely crazy even to myself as I tell it. I work in a professional field and I feel like I cannot tell anyone around me without sounding like I'm going off the deep end. But I need to talk to somebody, and I'm also concerned this thing may still be around Denver as we speak. I was at a friend's house in Lakewood suburb of Denver Saturday, March 14th, 2015. This house is surrounded by typical Denver suburbs, but does butt up next to an area of open space. She lives on a very large lot, an acre and a half possibly, with an 8-foot solid stone fence along the back of the property and a shorter 5-foot iron fence that divides the front yard from the back. She had explained that she had coyote problem there, so she's very careful when letting out her dog. He's a very old pug. He's deaf and can't see well either. I can hear the coyotes when I'm there, and there are rabbits everywhere. We regularly find evidence of rabbit kills around the yard, so when she takes her dog out at night, she takes a very large flashlight, twice the size of a large mag light, and shines it around the yard first and lets him out but stays right next to him the whole time with the flashlight on. She also insisted that I do the same. I grew up in the desert and I've seen plenty of coyotes, and they are pretty small and typically cowards. I thought she was being overly paranoid about it, but it may have saved my life that Saturday night. I went out and explored the yard. I shined the flashlight around the yard all over where we would be. I didn't take them all that far from the back door to use the restroom because the dog is fairly disabled these days. I saw nothing but let the dog out with me. I kept them very close to me because I promised that I would. A small but important detail here, and one that I feel may have saved my life. Part of that iron fence between the front and backyard butts up to the driveway. I was standing maybe 20 yards from the back door and around 10 yards from the iron fence. I had my back to the iron fence and the dog close. This is where I feel like I sound weird, but here goes. I heard what sounded like hooves beating extremely fast from behind me. In my head, I had just enough time to think, why am I hearing hooves? I knew a horse made no sense, and I knew the sound of hooves. I knew an animal was coming straight at me. I turned expecting a coyote, even though The sound made no sense. As I turned around to the fence, something I can hardly describe had just launched off the ground from the driveway. It was moving extremely fast and cleared the fence easily. It was more like it had jumped from further back in the driveway, so its trajectory would land it closer to us at that speed. As I said, we were only around 10 yards from the fence, but this thing was moving so fast. I would guess I had about 1 second tops to register the sound I heard, thanks to the concrete on the driveway, and realize something was happening. Since I expected a coyote as I turned around, all I could think was to stick my arms out and make myself look bigger, as well as kind of shield the dog near me. I screamed no as loud as I could and caught this thing in the flashlight beam as I turned around. It was coming straight at me. I had a split second to step aside slightly as it landed just feet from me. It was still going full speed when it hit the ground. Like fast predator speed, it touched down quickly on all fours but immediately rose back up onto 2 legs and continued running at full speed toward the back fence. The dog gave a very short chase, just a few steps really, but could never keep up with that speed. This thing continued running straight towards the back stone fence. The back fence is around 30 yards from where I was standing when this took place and is, like I said, 8 feet tall. I heard its steps moving away and followed it with the flashlight. I did not actually see it jump the back fence, but I lost it in the confusion heading that direction almost too quickly to have stopped. Also, I didn't hear any steps through the wide gravel border surrounding the fence. I can only assume it cleared the back fence as easily as it cleared the one in front, even though this one was much higher. I'm going to start off by saying that I've been in the outdoors my entire life. I grew up in a smallish desert town, and my family has 2 cabins in the mountains. Most of my free time revolves around the outdoors. I've seen all types of wildlife: bear, cougar, wolves, coyotes. I mention those because they are predators. This was a predator also, but nothing like these animals. This was so unlike anything I had ever seen. It's actually very hard to describe, but I will do my best. Like I said, I was expecting a coyote as I turned around. The combination of expecting a coyote but seeing something so completely alien, and the fact that it was moving so fast and coming straight at me, made it very hard to take in as it flew toward me. It was very large and pitch black. It was not long-haired, but I would say a thin layer of hair over a black skin, or possibly a full layer of short black hair. I thought I heard hooves beat, but I never did get a clear look at its feet. I would assume it was actually claws on the concrete. As it was coming over the fence, it also seemed bigger than when it landed. I wouldn't say it had wings, but it felt like an extra skin. It hit the ground right behind us, exactly behind where I had just been. That's where I got a good light on it. It was moving so fast it touched down and immediately stood back up while running. Its head was lower than mine, but still quite tall, over 5 feet. It was not standing totally erect like a person, so it was probably even taller, and it was also running. I barely looked down on its face, and I'm 5'10". It hit the ground with enough weight that I felt its weight vibrate through my feet, as well as the first couple of heavy steps it took as it passed me. The extra skin made it very hard to judge the weight of its body, but it was large. It was almost coal black, to a point that the main body almost seemed to absorb my flashlight beam as it ran off, like a matte black. As it stood up, the legs seemed to be backwards jointed, like a dog's. Some of the only color I saw on it was a bit of brown running down its legs. Picture a Doberman's color. It was very close. I'm still surprised we didn't touch. And the legs seemed very strong. I could see muscle definition almost like a man's legs. The main body was thick, but because of the skin, which I'm having a hard time describing, a close comparison would be almost like a cape. There was very little definition around the front. I saw its arms sticking out, but there was nowhere close to the definition of its legs. The arms were much smaller, and again, I didn't get a good look at its hands. The back was broad, but the anatomy was very hard to process. The head looked like the combination of things. Much like a wolf, but thicker and less elongated, like a bear's skull. Canine teeth were visible. It was already passing me as it continued running and was looking over at me. The teeth were definitely bared. It did seem to have a lighter gray-colored streak along its jaw. Really the only other color I had seen on its body. The eyes looked to be yellow in my flashlight. I don't know if they were reflecting or if it was its true color since we were so close. I feel like they were reflecting, but I cannot be positive. I had a dog within a few feet on either side of me. It landed and ran between myself and one of the dogs, but did not try to snatch them. The dog would have been easy pickings for this creature at that speed. I had the distinct impression it was coming for me, and I just happened to move out of its way, and it was already passing too fast to grab. This thing made no sound at all except for the hoof or claw type sound I was hearing on the concrete. On the grass, it was almost silent except for the few steps closest to me. I called my parents in the morning, and the best way I could describe with the normal animals was wolf, bear, bat, and possibly monkey, but mostly monkey because of its two legs. This whole thing had me pretty shaken. Once again, this thing disappeared and I was alone in the dark with just a flashlight. I had already lost sight of it. I wasn't sure if it even left the yard. It may be circling around. I've worked in clubs my life. I've been stabbed and shot at, but I've never been more scared in my life than in the silence after that thing passed by me. I was absolutely terrified as I tried to wrangle the dogs into the house. I slowly backed up and ran the flashlight all around me. I wanted to run, but I couldn't leave the dogs outside. I'm not a very religious person. Actually, I've never really been, to be totally honest. As I backed toward the house that I was scared, the first thought that came to my mind was that I had just seen a demon. It sounded crazy to me, but I just couldn't process what had just happened at any rational level. I still can't. I don't believe in demons, and I don't think this was one, but a couple of days ago, I didn't believe I had an encounter with an unknown creature like this either. It scared me so bad that I can't even open the door at night without getting full-body goosebumps. And even looking out the windows in the dark makes me uncomfortable now. It's strange to say and irrational, but I'm currently scared of the dark. My body is physically reacting uncontrollably. Now, like he said, he did research after having this experience. The encounter was a split second, no longer than 2 to 3 seconds. That is incredibly fast. For him to get all of that detail in that he got was truly amazing. He did equate the hoof-like sound to claws. Like he said, it did have a snout, bear-like or wolf-like. But the extra skin that he was seeing might have been a mane, okay? It wasn't flying, it was jumping. He just was like, what is this kind of extra tuft on it? That's why he had a hard time, like, judging the width of the shoulder as it was running behind him. But after days, possibly weeks of researching, he had compared it to other, like, Bigfoot Dogman, and it did resemble Dogman. And then he came across a encounter like he mentioned in the very beginning, the Mud Creek Road creature in Pennsylvania. Here is that encounter, a comparison encounter. This occurred November 20th, 2011, outside of Troy in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. At about 11:05, a couple were driving onto Mud Creek Road traveling west toward Highway 14 near Troy. As they continued down the dark road, their attention was drawn to the left side of the roadway. The man, who was the driver, had seen some movement and mentioned it to his girlfriend. The girlfriend initially thought it was a naked man crawling on the side of the road. The driver decreased his speed and swerved his truck in the middle of the road and directed his high beams of his headlights towards the subject. The driver stopped 30 to 40 feet away. They soon realized that this was not a person, instead a creature that was crawling very low to the ground. As they watched, the creature moved into a squatted position with its back completely straight, somewhat like the stance of a kangaroo. The arms of the creature were held tightly to its body, what looked like long claws that resembled talons. The claws were estimated to be about 8 to 10 inches in length. One claw was shorter than the other 3. The creature had a muscular body, and the head of the beast appeared to be an oversized shape of that of a wolf. At the top of its head, there were 2 pointed bat-like ears that looked to be about 4 to 6 inches. The entire creature, according to the man, was covered in a dull, wrinkly, dark brown skin. The man described seeing large canine-like teeth in its mouth. The eyes of the creature were about the size of a silver dollar and were shiny black. The man stated that even though he had his high beams on this creature, the eyes did not reflect at all. The man said he looked over the body during this 12-second encounter, and for some reason, this creature remained squatted in its position. The creature seemed to be about 5 feet tall, squatted. At that point, the creature was in the left lane of the road and about 1 to 2 feet onto the pavement. As the couple watched in amazement, the creature began to stretch its body. The man said at this point the animal stood on its back legs while also falling over onto its front. So it stood straight up and then dropped to a quadruped. The driver said in that position, the creature seemed to be about 6 to 7 feet tall, standing straight up. The animal then fell over onto 4 legs. The witness observed that the front claws of the creature were now 2 feet across the center line, while the back feet remained 1 to 2 feet from the edge of the road. I'd put the creature at somewhere between, 6, 7 feet long as well. The creature then turned its head to the right, looked toward the vehicle. The driver stated that it looked directly at them with a horrific expression, like it was panicked. The fella saw it, took a deep breath. He had the feeling that the creature didn't realize that it was being observed, and when it realized it was like it had been caught doing something. Once it realized that it was being observed, it leaned back slightly and then reached forward with its claws. The creature then took one tremendous leap and cleared a 7-foot embankment and moved out of sight into a wooded area. The man estimated the leap was about 40 feet long. As it was in the process of leaping, it was perfectly straight and held its front claws forward, so almost like a cat, I guess, would jump. The legs, as it was leaping, were only slightly larger than broomsticks, or appeared to be that way. They were very long. Then, just a second after the creature was gone from sight, something else odd occurred. A large, possibly an owl, suddenly rushed at the passenger side window, almost hitting the glass, then took off and didn't return. It happened so fast they were unsure if it was an owl or not. The witnesses indicated that this creature appeared to be changing form. The driver said its shape was nothing like when it was squatted. The woman stated that it shaped into another form. She thought it was dark brown and looked like a werewolf with a little black hair. She estimated that when it was leaping into the woods, she thought it stood about 9 feet tall. The woman, while reluctant to say, said, "I think it was a man changing into a werewolf." The man, after the experience, went onto the internet and tried to figure out what he had seen. The closest thing he could find was gargoyle with no wings, or possibly a dogman. I have never forgot what we saw that night. I also cannot be sure 100% that it was a dogman. Now, that description of the creature, even though it resembles a dogman, we hear about these just awful, strange looking creatures that we just can't categorize, because either the eyewitness missed something or misjudged something, or it is exactly as the person said it was. And we just don't have a category for that creature. To me, and I'm just saying to me, both of these creatures almost sound like they may have come from a portal. We've heard a very few portal encounters. The one that really just, when I hear portal encounters, that sticks in my head would be in the valley by Skinwalker Ranch. A Ute Native American was out hunting, sitting on a ridge, and saw this kind of black hole form 3 to 4 feet off the ground. It wasn't right on the ground. It was above the ground, and then dropped a creature. My cat always does this. Sorry, guys. And then that dropped out this creature. He couldn't explain what this thing looked like, but it was so horrifying that as he watched it run one way, he ran the other and never went hunting again. He only kept his firearms. Even though he never hunted again, he kept his firearms because he didn't know if this thing was coming for him or not. So maybe that's what this was, or maybe it was just misjudging shapes and stuff. I'm not sure, but to me, both are a very similar description of the creature and fits in the Dogman encounter category. Anyway, let's get on to tonight's next encounter. Tonight's final encounter. This happened when I was 14. We were in Oklahoma. I was on a trip camping with my parents, my 2 sisters, 2 of my aunts, an uncle, and 4 cousins. We had rented a cabin, staying for a week. When we got to the cabin, we all unpacked our stuff and got everything inside. After that, I went to check out the woods surrounding the cabin. There was nothing but trees for miles, as far as the eye could see. I saw a lone deer grazing, so everything was normal. We went out to pick some food up at the nearest restaurant, and when we got back, we found this big paw prints, which I had never seen in my life. Back home, my family owned 3 dogs, 2 small ones and 1 large one. I have measured my big dog's paw prints, and they are as big as my hand. This paw print was much bigger. I asked my dad what kind of wild dog left these paw prints. He said it could belong to a coyote or, worst case scenario, a wolf. After that, we watched a movie while eating dinner, and after that, we went to sleep since it was getting dark. I was sleeping in the living room, and the rest of my family had slept in their own rooms. I stayed up for a few minutes on my phone playing games, and while doing that, I heard noises outside. It sounded like a large canine panting. I don't know why, but I decided to go and see what it was from the window. And what I saw gave me goosebumps. I saw 2 glowing orangish red eyes. From my experience, it looked like a wolf's glowing eyes that I've seen in movies, but the weird thing is, the eyes were 7 to 8 feet from the ground. I got frightened and ducked down. After 5 minutes, I looked back, and the creature, or whatever it was gone. I went on the couch and hid under the covers until the sun had come up. The next morning, my family and I were eating breakfast. I didn't bring up what I saw last night to them because I didn't want them to call me crazy. The next 2 days, nothing else happened until the 3rd day, my older cousin and I decided to go for a walk in the woods. No one else wanted to come with us, so it was just us 2. While we're walking, we're talking about video games and other stuff. When we stopped talking, we noticed the woods had gone completely silent. I stopped my cousin, and he noticed it as well. After a few minutes, we heard a twig snap. We turned into the direction of the noise, and what we saw will forever haunt us. We saw a large wolf covered in dark fur, but it looked like it was muscular, and its front paws looked like human hands, or almost raccoon-like. Then the wolf creature stood on its hind legs and towered over my cousin and I, snarling at us. We saw its teeth. It looked like it may have had some human-like teeth, but there were many canine as well. My cousin and I ran back to the cabin with this creature behind us, running on all 4s. We didn't look back because we didn't want to slow down. By some miracle, we made it to the cabin, and when we looked back, the wolf creature was gone. We ran inside, locked the door. Our family saw us in surprise. They asked us what had happened, and we told them everything. My sisters and my other cousins didn't believe us. One of my aunts was shocked. My mom was frightened. My other aunt didn't believe us as well. Both my dad and uncle believed us. My dad warned the rest of the family not to go outside without an adult. It was getting late, and we were still up watching TV. And that's when we all heard this ear-piercing howl. Now the rest of the family believed what we had seen. What happened next terrified the entire family. We heard the front door being scratched by something. My dad was about to go look through the window, but then we saw it. The wolf creature was at the window, its eyes a glowing orangish red, and it was snarling through the window. My father and my uncle grabbed their rifles, turned on the porch light, and went outside. But once again, the wolf creature had vanished. Me and my family went outside, and we saw a lot of dead animals scattered all over the place. We also saw claw marks on the door and blood stains on them. We went back inside, locked all the doors and windows. My dad kept guard just in case this wolf creature came back. And the rest of us wanted to sleep, still terrified. A few hours later, I was still looking out the window, and there it was again. I stared at it. It stared back at me with those glowing eyes. It then turned and disappeared into the darkness of the woods. I lied back down but didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, we all ate breakfast, packed our stuff, and headed home. We never went back into those woods again. We're all still terrified about that night's event. After a few months, I did a little research, and I believed my cousins and my family have encountered a dogman, or werewolf, whatever you want to call them. There have been sightings of this creature all over the world and missing reports of people disappearing in the woods. I'm glad my family and I didn't become a dogman's next victim. Who knows what would have happened if the dogman had managed to get inside the cabin that night.
There you have it, folks. Just an absolutely terrifying bonus upload. Similar experiences miles apart. Portals, it just doesn't get any more terrifying. Anytime I hear about portals, I immediately think about Tom Messick. Just something about portals in that case just drive me insane. The metallic noises that I caught out there, I really do believe that he was taken into a portal and experimented on, to be honest with you. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives all of us a place to share our experiences and theories, judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.